Host tried to corner Denzel with a woke trap on live TV. But what Denzel said next? The crowd went silent and then erupted. The studio lights gleamed, casting a warm glow over the sleek set of the Spotlight Hour, a popular evening talk show known for its mix of charm, wit, and occasional controversy. The audience buzzed with anticipation, their chatter filling the air as the cameras panned across the modern stage. Velvet curtains framed a minimalist desk, behind which sat the host, Marcus Reed, a polished media personality with a reputation for sharp questions and a knack for steering interviews into viral territory. Tonight, his guest was none other than Denzel Washington, Oscar-winning actor, director, and Hollywood icon, whose presence alone commanded respect. The interview had started on a high note, as most do with Denzel. Marcus leaned into the light-hearted banter, his tailored suit catching the light as he tossed out questions about Denzel's storied career. The audience laughed as Denzel recounted a behind-the-scenes story from Training Day, his eyes twinkling, with the easy charisma that had made him a household name. He spoke of the grueling rehearsals for Fences, the emotional weight of bringing August Wilson's play to the screen, and the mentorship he'd offered younger actors on set. His voice, deep and measured, carried the weight of experience, but his humility shone through each answer, laced with gratitude for his craft and his journey. The crowd was eating it up. Marcus, ever the showman, mirrored their energy, flashing a wide grin as he leaned back in his chair. "Denzel, you've got this way of stealing every scene," he said, prompting cheers. "How do you make it look so effortless?" Denzel chuckled, adjusting his glasses. "It's not effortless, Marcus. It's work. But when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like it." For the first 20 minutes, it was classic Denzel, engaging, reflective, and magnetic. The audience hung on his every word, and Marcus seemed content to let the conversation flow naturally. But anyone familiar with the Spotlight Hour knew Marcus had a habit of pivoting often abruptly into territory designed to spark headlines. And tonight, with a figure as towering as Denzel Washington, the temptation was too great to resist. The shift came subtly at first, like a cloud passing over the sun. Marcus leaned forward, his posture sharpening, his smile taking on a calculated edge. The audience, still warm from the laughter, didn't notice the change immediately, but Denzel did. His eyes narrowed slightly, catching the glint of something new in Marcus's demeanor. "Denzel," Marcus began, his voice smooth but laced with intent, "you've played a lot of strong male characters like Alonzo Harris in Training Day or Troy Maxson in Fences. Some might say those roles with their intense masculinity could be seen as problematic in today's cultural climate. Do you think that's still something to be proud of?" The question landed like a stone in still water. A murmur rippled through the audience, a mix of curiosity and unease. The term problematic hung in the air, loaded with the weight of modern discourse. Marcus tilted his head, his smirk suggesting he expected Denzel to squirm, to offer a diplomatic dodge or a conciliatory nod to the zeitgeist, but Denzel Washington didn't squirm. He didn't flinch. He blinked once, slowly, as if processing not just the question, but the intent behind it. Then he leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his gaze locking onto Marcus with an intensity that made the host shift in his seat. "Strength is not toxicity," Denzel said, his voice calm but unyielding, each word deliberate. "Integrity is not aggression. And masculinity, real masculinity, isn't the enemy. Weak character is." The audience stirred, a few gasps mingling with murmurs of agreement. Marcus's smirk faltered, but he recovered quickly, leaning back with a practiced laugh. "Bold words, Denzel," he said, glancing at the crowd for support. "But let's unpack that. You're saying you don't think Hollywood needs to evolve to reflect more progressive values?" It was a trap, and everyone in the room knew it. The word progressive was a loaded gun, aimed at pulling Denzel into a cultural quagmire, where any misstep could be clipped, tweeted, and twisted into a scandal by morning. The audience held its breath, sensing the stakes. Denzel didn't take the bait. He leaned back slightly, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp, cutting through the studio lights like a blade. If evolving means erasing identity, tearing down fathers and labeling confidence as violence, then no, that's not progress. That's confusion. The word confusion hit like a thunderclap. The studio fell silent, the kind of silence that feels alive with tension. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it, his usual quick-wittedness stalling under the weight of Denzel's response. The audience, sensing the shift, began to stir again, a few claps breaking the quiet, but Denzel wasn't done. He leaned forward, again his voice steady, his words carrying the conviction of a man who'd spent decades navigating Hollywood's complexities without losing himself. I was raised by a father who taught me to protect, provide, and respect. That wasn't toxic, that was love. And I won't apologize for reflecting that in my work or in my life. The claps grew louder now, spreading like wildfire. A woman in the front row stood, her hands coming together with force, and others followed. The sound swelled, filling the studio with a roar of approval. Marcus, visibly rattled, tried to pivot, forcing a chuckle. "Well, Denzel, you're certainly not mincing words tonight," he said, glancing at his cue cards as if searching for an escape. "So, I guess you're not running for office anytime soon?" It was a weak attempt at deflection, a joke meant to lighten the mood and regain control. But Denzel just smiled, a quiet, knowing smile that seemed to say he saw through the ploy. "No," he said, his voice softer now but no less powerful. "I don't want to run for office, I want to stand for truth." "Even if I stand alone," the audience erupted. The applause was deafening, a standing ovation that shook the studio. People were on their feet cheering not just for Denzel but for the clarity he brought to a moment that could have been muddied by spin. Marcus, now visibly sweating under the lights, forced a grin and raised his hands, as if to join in the applause while steering the show toward a commercial break. "We'll be right back after this," he said. His voice barely audible over the crowd. As the cameras cut away, the energy in the room lingered. Stagehands whispered to each other. Audience members turned to their neighbors, and social media was already lighting up. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were uploaded to X, where they spread like wildfire. Hashtags like #Denzel Speaks Truth and #Washington Wisdom trended globally within hours. Headlines began to pour in from entertainment sites and blogs. Denzel Washington shuts down woke host in epic interview. Hollywood legend drops truth bomb on live TV. Denzel's stand for truth goes viral. Commentators on X were divided but passionate. Some praised Denzel's unflinching honesty, calling it a masterclass in staying grounded in a world of performative outrage. "This is why Denzel is a legend," one user posted. "No shouting, no insults, just straight-up truth." Others, predictably, accused him of being out of touch, with one viral post claiming, "Denzel's stuck in the past, defending outdated ideals." But even his critics couldn't deny the impact of his words. The clip racked up millions of views, shared by everyone from every day. Fans to cultural commentators and even a few politicians trying to ride the wave. What made the moment resonate wasn't just the content of Denzel's words, but the way he delivered them. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't resorted to personal attacks or grandstanding. He'd spoken with a quiet strength, a clarity that cut through the noise of modern discourse like a beacon. In a world where outrage often drowned out reason, Denzel's calm conviction was a reminder that real power didn't need to shout, it simply spoke. And the world listened. Back in the studio, as the show resumed after the break, Marcus tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground, asking about Denzel's upcoming projects. But the dynamic had shifted. The audience was still buzzing, and Denzel, ever the professional, answered with his usual grace, though his earlier words hung over the room like a challenge. Marcus didn't try another loaded question. In the days that followed, the interview became a cultural touchstone. Talk shows dissected it, op-eds analyzed it, and everyday people quoted it in conversations online and off. For some, it was a rallying cry to reclaim values like strength and integrity from the distortions of polarized debates. For others, it was a lightning rod, proof that Hollywood's old guard was out of step with a changing world. But for most, it was simply a moment of authenticity in an era that craved it. Denzel, for his part, didn't comment on the viral moment. He didn't need to. His words had done the talking, and they continued to echo long after the studio lights dimmed.